podcast for feminine leaders creating wild success, deep empowerment, and divine wealth on their terms. I'm Kirstin Carey, and I'm here to alter the energetic architecture of how women build their businesses and find their full body yes. We're in the middle of a special 6-part money and pricing series. And if you've been following along, you know how powerful the conversations have already been on this. The series is designed to help you move from undercharging and hating sales into feeling confident, grounded, and unapologetic about pricing, selling, and receiving money in your business. Now, each episode is a stepping stone across the same river. Episode 11, which was part 1 of the series, focuses on the 3 biggest lies about pricing that will keep you broke and what to do instead. And if you've missed it, I highly recommend that you go back and listen, because that episode sets the stage for everything we're covering in the whole series. Now, today we're covering with part 2 of the series, why women hate selling and the secret to selling so it feels good and your clients love you for it. Now, this one is close to my heart because I hear almost every single day from a coach that I hate sales and I'm not good at it and I feel terrible doing it and I just want to coach my clients and not have to do any of the selling part. And if you've ever felt that way, I want you to stick with me here, because what I'm going to share with you today is going to help shift the way that you see sales. But before we dive in, quick side note, if you haven't already done so, you can download your copy of the Frequency of Yes Money Map. It's a free interactive guide that walks you through the strategy and the flow of pricing in a way that feels good and actually works. So I'm going to add that in the links in the show notes, so make sure you grab it after you've listened. So let's drop in. Now, most women I meet don't hate selling because they're bad at it, though most of them will tell you they're bad at it. They actually hate selling because of the way they've been taught to sell feels manipulative and predatory. And they've been handed scripts and they've been taught to handle objections and they've been told to push for the close, and they're shown strategies that might work for a certain kind of person, but they feel totally misaligned for them. But no wonder so many women would rather avoid sales altogether. They're told that unless they convince and pressure or trick somebody into a yes, they're not actually selling. And that's not only false, it's damaging. So let me zoom out for a minute. At its very core, a sales conversation is simply about clarity. The goal is not to convince or push. It's to find out whether the person in front of you is the right fit for your offer right now, and whether your offer is the bridge that can carry them from where they are now to where they want to be. That's it. Clarity. A clear yes, a clear no, or a clear not for now. All 3 of those are powerful outcomes. But if it's so simple, why does it feel so hard for so many? Well, part of it comes from women being conditioned over years, being taught to be likable or to smooth things over, to avoid conflict, and to be nice. And we've also been taught that our job is to make others feel comfortable. In the sales conversation where someone is coming to you to fix their problem, comfort and smoothness aren't necessarily going to help them want to take action on a solution. And I know, stick with me here. I can already feel some of you like cringing. The reason you're probably cringing is what I just said might be shining a light on what's hidden in the shadows of the imbalanced feminine frequency hiding within you. And this is when you lean into trauma response mode and you give away too much coaching on the call, or you try to prove your worth or how smart you are, or you try to make the other person like you so they just have to say yes to your offer. But when you go into that over-giving mode, or you focus on them liking you, you're not helping the prospect. You're actually harming them, because you're creating the illusion that they can get the full transformation that they want from a free call. And that means that they walk away without understanding what it actually takes to get the results they want. And then there's also the flip side, the old school bro selling strategy that leans into the shadow masculine, which are like the pressure tactics and the fear-based deadlines and forcing decisions in the moment. Now, that kind of selling might get you a few quick wins, but it typically leaves clients in a state of fear, which leads to higher refund rates, more chargebacks, and people who don't get results because they never really felt safe with you in the first place. So neither of those extremes work. And I'm going to go deeper into that as we continue on this episode. But what we are looking for is balance. Balanced energy means that you're not overgiving or coaching for free, and you're not pressuring or manipulating either. You're holding the space for the client to find their clarity. You're walking them across a bridge from confusion to clarity. And when you can approach sales in that way, it stops feeling like selling and it starts feeling like serving. So think about it this way. If your offer is truly designed to help someone get from where they are now to where they want to be, then your job in the sales conversation is not to make them say yes. Your job is to hold the space so they can see the path really clearly and then invite them into the opportunity to step onto that bridge with you. Now, sometimes the answer is going to be a yes, sometimes it's going to be a no, and again, sometimes it's going to be a no for now. Any of those outcomes are in line with the goal because they create clarity. The only outcome which is not really a good one is the one that comes out muddy. Like when you and the client walk away unclear, uncertain, or still tangled in fear. So let me take this deeper. One of the reasons women typically hate selling is because they've been trained to believe that if someone doesn't say yes, then they've failed. And I want you to hear me. You did not fail if the person says no. What matters is why they said no. Was it because the offer wasn't really the right fit? That's a win because you didn't want clients who weren't aligned in the first place. So when it's not a good fit, we want to get super clear about that. Or maybe the reason they said no is because your frequency was off. Maybe you were in fear when you were on the call yourself, or you were so connected to them saying yes and thinking that was your job. Maybe you're unsure about your price, or you're trying to convince them instead of holding space for them. And if you see that and understand that your frequency was off and you understand that that's just a learning experience, you can then grow from that, then that's not a failure either. That's information you can use to adjust and grow and attract more of the right clients. So this shift alone can change everything. When you stop making everything about your yes or your no and making that about your worth, and you start focusing on the prospect and truly trying to understand what she needs, you're going to free yourself from all of the pressure that you probably feel during a sales call. You're going to step out of the shadow energy and into the balanced frequency of yes. Now, another reason I see that most coaches say they hate selling is because a lot of the sales training that's out there makes them feel out of integrity. And even though many sales training courses are disguised as relationship selling, they're not. The manipulation, the tricks, the overcome their objections at all costs kind of tactics makes the whole thing feel kind of awful. And I'm also noticing a bigger trend towards the terms aligned sales or relationship sales being marketed out there to coaches for this very reason, because they feel out of alignment with their selling. But many of those new programs are simply repackaged bro selling tactics with the same trick them into it approach, which still feels pretty awful. And when something feels like that, your nervous system goes on alert. And when you feel like you're forcing yourself to do something manipulative or against your core truth, it's not going to work for you or for the client. The problem isn't that you're incapable of selling. In fact, most women, especially coaches, are already inherently good at sales. I mean, think about your life. How many times have you influenced someone that you love in a way that kind of mattered? I mean, it's not this important, but I'm sure at some point you've convinced your partner to try a new restaurant. Or maybe something more important, like you've encouraged a child to believe in themselves. Or you've helped a friend see a better option when they felt stuck. Or you've helped a client reframe their perspective, and then that opened up a door to their transformational outcome. That's all sales. Sales is simply helping someone see a possibility they couldn't have seen on their own and supporting them to take action to change it based on their values and their goals. But in business, women often get told that sales is something else entirely. We get told that sales means memorizing a script or saying the perfect thing at the perfect time or pushing someone to a yes before they're ready or pretending that there's urgency when there isn't. And if you've ever been on the receiving end of any of those tactics, you know exactly why you don't want to be repeating them and using them yourself. That tight feeling you get in your chest when someone's pushing you into a corner is the exact opposite of trust. And yet so many sales coaching programs teach that exact same method. So no wonder you hate it. Look, I worked with a client one time who hated sales so much, she tried to avoid it altogether. She told me, look, I just want to put everything up under an evergreen funnel with a video and a landing page so people can just buy without ever needing to talk to me. Now, what was underneath that? What I discovered is that all of her issues were about this idea of objection handling. She hated the idea of someone telling her no, and she hated the idea of having to handle someone's concerns. So instead of learning how to have a real clear conversation with a prospect, she kept creating these new low-ticket offers and automations. And the problem was none of them really sold that well to sustain her business because she wasn't actually in a sales conversations on those pages. She was avoiding a lot of the clarity, the connection, and the rapport that she needed to sell high-ticket offers. And that's what the sales conversation really is. It's not about forcing or convincing. It's about clarity. And it's about surfacing what someone really wants, where they are now, what's in their way, and whether your offer is the bridge that helps them across. And if it is, great. If it isn't, also great. Either way, both of you walk away clear. Now, when this client of mine shifted into the frame where she realized that this was just a conversation and that she wasn't bad at sales, she actually got really great at the listening piece, great at asking the right questions, and great at helping people see what was possible, which is what she loved. Once she saw her sales calls as a curious conversation instead of a fight to win, she stopped hiding behind her landing pages and she started having real conversations. And guess what? Her conversions went up. Her clients felt supported and she no longer dreaded the sales part of her business. So let me circle back to something I just said. Sales is a curious conversation. It's designed to understand what the prospect needs, to uncover why they think they need it, and to see if you have a solution that will solve what they think they need as well as what they don't even know they need. Your offer is their bridge. The piece that connects someone from where they are right now, which is typically frustrated or stuck or overwhelmed or unsure, to where they want to be, which is typically more confident or clear or healed or aligned or in a growing business or living in their purpose. Whatever the transformation is that you provide, your offer is the bridge that helps them walk across. The sales conversation isn't about forcing them to cross. It's about showing them the bridge, letting them decide if they're ready to walk it with you. And when you look at it this way, selling becomes an act of leadership. And women are natural leaders when they're aligned. I mean, think about it. Most women are wired for deep listening, for empathy, for noticing subtleties, and for holding space. And those exact gifts are what makes a sales conversation really powerful. And when you lean into those strengths instead of try to mimic some like bro marketer trainer high pressure script, you find a rhythm that actually feels good. And this is also where the feminine and the masculine energies come together. When you're in a shadow masculine, for example, you're going to try to control or force or push. And you don't trust the client to make the decision that's right for them. So you think it's all on you to make the sale. And that's why it feels so off, because it's actually not about you. But on the flip side, when you're in the shadow feminine, you're going to overgive. You'll slip into coaching during the sales call because you want to be liked. You want to show how smart you are, thinking that if you can just prove your worth, then they're going to have to say yes, right? But again, it's not about you. What actually happens is you end up giving away so much when you slide into that they think they can do it without you, and then they don't hire you. The empowered version of both energies is where sales feels aligned. The empowered feminine listens deeply, holds space, and calls someone into their truth. The empowered masculine provides structure, asks clear questions, and holds the container so that the conversation has a direction. When you bring those together, you create a balanced energy that feels good for you and safe for the client. And that's what selling is supposed to feel like. And if you're nodding along with me right now, I want to invite you to take this even further with something that I've created called the frequency of yes money map. It's a simple but really powerful way to see the bridge in your own business. How many clients you really need, what prices feel solid in your body, and what priorities will move your business forward now. I'll add the link in the show notes so you can grab it. So spend some time with it because it's going to give you some clarity that you really need to start seeing sales as a service and not a stressor. So let's talk a little bit more about starting the sales conversation. The goal is not to launch into a sales pitch or to prove how much you know. The goal is to create safety and clarity from the very first moment. And I like to begin by grounding the client by creating a solid frame for the call so that you are in control, but they feel comfortable in that frame. So first, you want to make sure you set aside the time that you have available for the conversation. Make it really clear. Something like, we've got 30 minutes set aside for us this morning. And you're setting the container with time. And then furthering it by letting them know the goal of the conversation. The goal in this conversation is for me to understand your biggest challenges right now and what brought you to this call today. And I want to better understand your vision of what you want instead. I'm not here to convince. I'm here to get clarity on what you need to get to where you want to go. And if I can help you reach those goals with one of my programs, we can talk about that in more detail. But if not, I'm going to be super clear about that too. Does that work for you? Now, you ask them, does that work for you? You don't just drill through this. Once you say that, does this work for you? You then wait and you let them take that in and you let them respond. It's a conversation. You're just setting the framework and you're getting buy-in from them that you're both on the same page. We got 30 minutes. I want to know what's going on for you, what your goals are, and we'll have more of a conversation if we think it's a good fit. Cool? Like that's essentially what you're doing. And then finally, you're going to get them started by asking an open-ended question like, I'd love to understand more, what's more important to you or what's most important to you right now. What made you book this conversation now? And I always love to say something like now or today or this morning, because you're setting this idea of they made this appointment now, not next week. They didn't wait another month. They hadn't done it before. Why this? Why now? That's going to open the door for them to start in their own words, but also get focused on the importance of now. From there, your job is to listen more than you speak. Ask questions, take notes. I'm going to say that again. Take notes. It's going to be a really important part of the process, and I'll tell you why in a moment. And then help them paint the picture of where they are and where they want to be. This is where you gather the raw materials that show you whether your offer is truly the bridge they need or if it's not a good fit. And notice what you're not doing here. You're not coaching them to solve the problem on the spot. You're not overwhelming them with the details of your program, and you're not getting into a pricing defending session. The opening of the sales conversation is about curiosity. What's going on in their world? What feels stuck? What would it mean to them to have their problem solved? This creates alignment right from the start. And when you start here, the client is going to feel seen. They're going to feel safe. And that safety is what's going to allow them to move closer to a yes or to a clear no, which is also a win because, again, clarity is our goal. Now, I'm going to talk more about setting the tone for the sales process in a few minutes. But first, I want to explain one of my favorite ways to guide a sales conversation to go deeper without manipulation. It's a technique that I've been using for years with paying clients to help them break old habits and false beliefs so they can step into their empowered self. And it's something that I realized I was doing instinctively when I sensed that a client or a prospect was sliding into fear or uncertainty to help them find that clarity in their own voice. And so my clients actually began calling it the Dr. Strange effect. And if you know me, you know that I love Doctor Strange. And I love the whole Marvel universe, multiverse concept. But this isn't just for comic book fans. Like, stick with me on this one. It's a way to help someone see their future self clearly so they can pull wisdom from that version of themselves and use it to make a decision in this now moment. So you're helping them step onto the timeline of the version of them that has everything they say they want and have a conversation with that version of them in this now moment. So here's how it works. Instead of piling on more reasons or more logic or more coaching when someone starts to hesitate, you start to slow everything down. This is in the part of the conversation where you've already had you've gotten information from them on what they need, where they're stuck, where they're blocked, and what they want instead. And if you feel them hesitating, or you've even had a conversation about your program and they feel stuck, this is where you can bring this into the conversation. So you ask them to imagine the version of themselves who already has everything they say they want. Maybe it's a business that's flowing with clients. Maybe it's their health restored. Maybe it's to find the love of their life. Whatever it is, you help them step into the version of themselves that already has that thing. Now I'm going to quickly walk you through the steps of this process. Now, if you want something more in depth than what I'm doing right here, I have a version of this that's longer, that gets into the minutia of this, where I pull apart an actual sales call I had so you can get into more detail on how this works. I'll put the link to that in the show notes as well. It's on the YouTube channel. But for now, here are the 5 steps to the whole entire approach. Step 1, pause and ask permission. Before you do this, ask them permission to have this part of the conversation with them. You don't just launch into it. You want to check in, saying something like, look, would you be open to a short exercise that could help you get some more clarity? Now, I have never at this point had someone say no to this, but I'm sure it could happen. But what you're doing is you're helping them feel in control and feel powerful. And you're saying to them, would you like some more help getting some more clarity? Of course, they're going to want to say yes. Yes, please help me out. That's what I'm here for. That's pretty much why they're on the sales calls, for more clarity. So they're going to say yes. If they say no, then you go, cool. And you don't do this. But I yet never had anybody say no. 2, you're going to invite them then to imagine. You're going to describe the version of themselves that you have taken notes on, again, in their words, not in yours, in theirs. You describe the version of themselves that already has the results they said they wanted. So they said they wanted this, this, and this. So you ask them to imagine that version that has all the things they say they wanted. Not what you think they want, what you actually took notes on that they said out loud that they wanted. And you reflect that back to them. Step 3, you ask them to embody that vision. I like to have them close their eyes and take a deep breath and get centered. And then picture what life would feel like on the timeline of the version of themselves that has all the things they say they wanted. You're not adding anything in new here that they didn't say. You're simply holding space for them to connect with the outcome, the version of them that has that they say they wanted. Step 4, you let them connect. You let them breathe into this version of themselves. You give that future self a voice. And when you feel a moment where they've connected, you ask them, now, what message does this version of you, who has all the things you say you wanted, what message does she have for you sitting here in this now moment? And then you wait. The silence might feel very uncomfortable. I'm just telling you right now. And the video that I have that you can go deeper in this on, I think she had me sitting there for 2 or 3 minutes. I sat there and waited. And 2 to 3 minutes can feel like an eternity when you're not saying anything. But they're connected. Let them be in it. Let them have the conversation with themselves. I guarantee you it's far more powerful than anything that you could say in that moment. But allow that wisdom from themselves, their future selves, come through to them. At some point, they're going to say something. Typically, they're going to come out with a word or a sentence or an emotion, something. It's going to land for them and they're going to tell you. Let it be, whatever it is. And your job isn't to then help them interpret it. Your job is to allow it to land, whatever they say. Like I've had some people say their future self said, go for it. Or don't hold back, or the time is now. Whatever that is, you then can say, even if it seems obvious, and what does that mean for you? You're just helping them get deeper clarity. It's not to interpret it or spin it into a sale. Your job is to hold the space while they connect the dots for themselves and have that conversation with themselves. Whatever happens in this process, it's powerful. It allows them to stop arguing with themselves in this now moment. It allows them to be open to the future possibility of them actually having the very thing that they say they want. In this now moment, they can't have that, but they can make a decision in this now moment to get that. They stop trying to use their logic to make a decision. They allow themselves to pull through and feel the decision, which is actually how we all make decisions, no matter what we think we're doing. This type of approach allows them to step into the emotional and the logical drivers at the same time, which is what we need to make an aligned decision that sticks. It's not about bypassing their hesitation. It's not about helping them get anything other than clarity on, is this the right bridge for me right now to walk across? That's it. Now, again, if you want more on this approach, go check out that video. Look in the show notes. I'll give you the link. This is going to help bring more clarity to why it works and the best time to use it. And it helps build trust and connection and clarity and belief, which also helps expose reasons why the person would hesitate, object, or say no to your offer. And I'm sure you've been in a situation where near the end of the call, you think everything went great and you're expecting them to pull out a credit card and they say, well, I need to think about it. Or I need to talk to my spouse, or it's not the right time, or it's too expensive, or they give you 1,000 other reasons why. Every single trainer I've ever talked to in sales has a script typically for these things. A lot of them tell you to counter with logic, or push back with urgency, or try and corner someone into make a yes, or to try to make their answer wrong. And that's why so many people hate selling, because it's not wrong. It's an opportunity. And if you feel like this is a moment where you have to manipulate them, it's going to feel out of alignment. Here's what I want you to really see. In this moment, when they give you something that is usually labeled an objection, it's not a rejection. It's information. It's a signal of where the prospect may feel unsafe or unclear, and it's an opportunity. Because when you understand that this is an opportunity and it's a moment where they're not totally sure, you're not going to need to handle them. I want you to stop in this moment and get curious. Think about all the shadow energies that could be slipping in here. In the shadow masculine, if you find yourself pushing, you've slid into that shadow masculine. You're going to pressure them or try to force them to choose now because you believe if they walk away, you failed and you'll never see them again. That's where you get this sign now or lose the bonus tactic, which I hate. And while those may actually get you a few quick wins, it's also going to create more opportunities for chargebacks and buyer's remorse and clients who don't trust you fully and won't get the transformational experience the way they could if they step into your program in a moment of trust rather than a moment of fear. If you slip into the shadow feminine, you're going to collapse during one of these opportunities. You're going to hear the objection and then you're going to back off completely or shut down because you're afraid you might make them uncomfortable if you say anything else, or you start apologizing by discounting your prices or offering other ways for them to get into the program now, trying to slip them past this objection. You also might find yourself overgiving in the moment or trying to coach them out of this to try and prove worth or how important it is to do this now. But when you do that and you walk away from the call with no sale, there's not going to be any clarity around that, and there's still going to be a loss of trust. Neither one of those shadow sides serves you or the client. The balanced approach looks very different than this, and it feels very different than this. Instead of trying to force or apologize, you hold the container and you stay present with this moment, knowing this isn't the end of the conversation. It actually might, for some of you, be the first opportunity you've really seen what's going on with that prospect. So you can say something like, I get that. Most people need to digest information in order to make a solid decision. What specifically would stop you from moving forward with this program right now? Now, ask that out of curiosity and not trying to convince somebody. It changes the whole entire vibration of the conversation. And this is where a lot of times people will say things that might be really easy things to help them overcome. Like I've said this and people will say, well, I'm having a problem right now because I just started this new class and this college class and it's on Tuesday nights. And some of the things in this program happen on Tuesdays. And I don't know if I'm going to be able to make all of the things on Tuesday. There's an easy solution for that. They're recorded. You can go back and watch the recordings if you ever miss the live opportunities. They're like, oh, I didn't know they were recorded. Now, even though we may have had the conversation about they're recorded, or maybe we missed it in the conversation earlier, now they're like, oh, okay, this thing that I made a big deal is not a big deal, and I get exactly what I need, and I can still have the opportunity to watch the trainings whenever I need them. Or let's just take the spouse objection, which is a pretty popular one. I typically will say something like, yep, I get that. My husband and I like to connect with each other before making decisions like this too. What do you think your spouse is going to say? Now, what's really interesting here is it gives them the opportunity to continue the conversation with me. And then they have to sit and think about what would their spouse say? And they'll say, well, my spouse is kind of really not supportive during a lot of this stuff because I've done so many other things before that didn't work. And I'm like, okay, what else have you done? Other conversation. Or do you feel like your spouse is not supporting this at all? Or do you feel like he just feels like you've spent a lot of money to this point? Do you want to bring him onto a call? I think maybe we might have a conversation together. How does that feel? And they're like, oh my God, I've had that happen multiple times too, where they say, oh, you would have a conversation with him and me? Absolutely. I want to bring that spouse onto the call. And I can't tell you the number of times the spouse has gotten on the call and they're really supportive. And what comes up is that person is the one who's more worried about herself being successful in the program than their spouse supporting them in the program. So bring it in, be open to it. Let's have a conversation, right? And you feel the difference in how this is going. I'm not trying to convince her of anything. If she wants to get off the call and go have a conversation with her spouse, let's do that. And there's a way to do that so they come back. What most sales trainers are teaching you is once you hit an objection, if you let them off the call before you get the yes, you're never going to see them again. That's not true. I often end calls where people leave the conversation, but what I don't let them do is leave the conversation without getting clarity. When you get clarity around a yes or a no or a not for now, you're going to know what to do to bring them back if it really is a true objection that needs to get handled and they need to go away and come back. There's an absolute way to do that, and it's really actually pretty simple, where you don't get ghosted, they don't totally no-show you, and they actually show back up for the call. But what I want you to do is when you get one of those objections, don't see it as an objection or a rejection, or don't even see it as a no at that moment. Just see it as an opportunity to ask another question to get clearer and to continue the conversation. So just asking these questions gives them more space to verbalize what they're feeling, and they may not even be clear on until they hear themselves saying it out loud. So their answer to you digging a little bit deeper there and getting curious helps them find a yes or find a no. But what it definitely does is it helps to also support the trust part of the conversation. A really popular thing I'm hearing right now is that people are saying, well, I'm really scared to invest in a program because I've invested in other ones that didn't work. And now I don't trust myself to make the right decision for me. That's a really powerful way to actually bring in the Dr. Strange effect close. When someone doesn't trust themselves, allowing them to have a conversation with themselves can be really popular. It's only in the last maybe 3 to 4 months I've been hearing this rejection, where it's not that they don't believe the program doesn't work, if they don't believe their ability to trust that a program could work for them, which is really different. So I want you to notice something important here, though. You are not responsible to make them say yes. You're responsible for creating the space for where they can arrive at a decision that feels right for them. And sometimes that decision is yes. Sometimes it's no. And again, there's a way to do this, but sometimes it's a no for now. Either way, clarity is success. And when you start practicing this, you're going to see 2 things happen. First, you're going to stop dreading objections. You're going to actually welcome them because you know they're simply the doorway to a deeper conversation. And second, your client's going to feel safer saying yes, not because you manipulated them, but because you respected their process. And that safety is what makes them show up fully once they enroll, which means better results for them and more referrals and renewal clients for you. And then this helps you step into your frequency of yes so that they can step into theirs. So let's circle back and talk about something that's a little bit more deep in the shadow feminine and the shadow masculine on the sales call. A lot of coaches, especially women, they slip into this shadow feminine and they hear the pain points and their instinct is to fix them or try to help them out of that pain in that moment. So they start giving advice and offering strategies and coaching during that call. And it feels really good because you know you can help and you want them to feel relief. But when you coach too much in a sales conversation, you actually rob them of clarity and you blur the line between what they can achieve on their own and what they need the support for in order to accomplish. So when they walk away thinking, I've got enough to do this on my own, what really is happening is they need the container of your program to get the full transformation, but you've given them the illusion that they can do it without you. And I know how hard those conversations can feel because for 15 years, I had a company where we helped people reverse autoimmune conditions and related symptoms. So I often had people on calls with me sobbing, telling me that their main goal was to not die. And I wanted so badly to help them not feel that fear and that pain that I lived with so many years, which is how I ended up creating a program and becoming a natural health practitioner. So sometimes what would happen on these calls is I would slip into coaching mode, which was more about me actually at that moment than it was about them, because it's so not necessarily comfortable to hold space in those moments and just simply listen. But listening is what they need at those moments because you're not their coach in this conversation. You're an expert in your field trying to understand what they want and what's causing their problem. You are not there to fix anything. You are there to help them see the problem and offer an opportunity to choose a solution. The balance is in holding the space with curiosity and structure. You're not fixing and you're not forcing. You're clarifying. And when they fully express their desires and their obstacles, you can reflect it back to them in a way that naturally positions your offer as the bridge. One way to do this is to say something like, well, from what you've shared today, it sounds like you want X. But what's been getting in the way is Y. Did I get that right? You always want to check in after you've said something like that. Did I get that right? And then you can continue after they say yes. Now, if they say no, then you'll say, tell me more about what you see. This, again, gives you an understanding of where you are. But if they say yes, you can then also say, it also looks like if you had support with Z, that would make it possible for you to get where you want to be. Does that resonate with you? Again, let them say yes or no. It takes you down a different path. When they say yes, you can say, well, that's exactly what this program is designed to do. Do you want to get into more detail about how that could work for you? If they say no, then you also have to understand what is it that they think they needed the support on. Again, notice you're not dumping your program details on them all from the beginning of all this. You're only offering it once they've seen the gap and you are ready to tell them about the bridge from where they are now to get them over the gap to where they want to be. I don't know how much more I can emphasize this, but when you can structure your conversations around clarity and understanding, it no longer becomes about nailing a perfect script. It's all about making sure that you ask questions that help you get more the information you need to help them see and yourself see, is this a good fit for you right now? And this is where I want to also remind you that sales is service. You're not trying to trick them. You're not manipulating. You're not using psychological tactics. You're leading. And when you lean into both the empowered feminine and the empowered masculine, you create an environment where clarity happens and aligned decisions are made. Now, we've covered a lot today. So let's take a deep breath and take stock in how you've been approaching sales calls and how you can adjust from convincing to curious conversations. When you learn how to leverage your inherent skills at rooting out underlying issues and helping to hold the right amount of tension and space for your prospects, you're going to see your conversions go up. And if you want to go deeper into how you can do that for your specific business, you can book a pivot call session with me and bring your answers that you got from your Frequency of Yes Money Map download with you. And we'll map out your strategy to build a business that supports you energetically and financially. In the next episode of this money and pricing series, we're going to dive into something that every female coach needs to hear: the energetics of pricing. This is where we're going to break down why undercharging is so common and how to know when you're pricing out of fear and how to set the numbers that feel solid in your body and safe for your clients to invest in. And if you've ever second guessed yourself or your prices, or you feel guilty about charging what you charge, this is going to be the episode that brings everything together and into alignment. So make sure you subscribe now, and I will see you next week.